guys, it's Friday. It's Friday afternoon. I would say everybody's off work, but like neither you nor I work anything that resembles a regular job. So like, who knows? The guy at the convenience store always used like to say to me, he'd be like, "Oh, are you getting off work?" When I would come in at like 8:30 to get beer, and I'd be like, "No, I've got like 6 more hours of editing, but you're gonna close, and I'm gonna need this beer at like 3 o'clock in the morning when you're not open."
I'm working around your schedule, buddy, not mine.
Yeah, exactly. So it's Friday. It's time to do the Rage Select podcast right here on Rage Select. I'm Jeff.
Hi, I'm Bryce.
Bryce, how are you doing? I was just saying I haven't talked to you in a little while, so...
Good. It's been a minute. It's been a little while. It feels like I was thinking about the last time I was on the show and trying to think of like what big stories like have happened since then. I guess there have been big like, I don't know, iceberg stories, but then I don't know, it's been really up and down the past few months.
I think it's weird because I think this might be the first week since it happened that we don't actually have any Blizzard, Activision, horrible industry bullshit news on the list, because it's just kind of chugging along waiting to see how that lawsuit goes. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like we're stuck in the middle. We've got just like I don't know about you, but for me, there's just been like a ton of games out recently that I'm in game choice paralysis, where I'm like, I want to play this, I want to play this, I want to play this. So I don't know. What have you been playing recently, or if anything?
There had not been much I was playing until very recently. I really got into that Netflix docu-series about Formula One, and so I've like in the span of like 2 weeks become like really into Formula One.
Okay.
And so after all that, I was like, okay, well, I remember a few years ago there was like a strategy game that I had played, like a manager game, like a Motorsport Manager game. And so I went and looked it up, and they have gotten a new version of it that's not like some free-to-play thing. So that's what I've been playing a lot the past like week or so is Motorsport Manager 3 on the phone, on the iPhone or the iPad. It's been really cool. You kind of give your guys strategies during the race, and you build the car or you build parts and stuff. It's really neat.
So you don't actually race. You're the guy with the big headphones on the side, telling them to pit in, and like, you're pushing it too hard, Sikowski. Like, you pass him on the right, pass him on the right. Like, so you're just like yelling at people who are actually doing the racing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it's its own sort of reward, because if there are so many racing games out there that I guess like with any of the manager games, it's another thing to feel like you're in this kind of almost objective vacuum where all that is on display are your strategy skills, right? Like, you can't drive the car better than them, but you can manage them, and that's neat. I think it's really neat, and it makes it. I feel like it makes it relatively easy to get in, but I don't know. I don't know how accessible it is.
Is this the gateway, though? Am I going to talk to you in like a month, and you're going to have like the chair and the pedals, and now you're actually racing for real? You've got like the big like wraparound monitor or whatever.
No, because I don't like simulation racing games, to be honest. Like they're just not. I mean, with the pedals and stuff, like I'm not good. I'd rather play like an arcadey racing game like Horizon for Forza Horizon, or the old Need for Speeds. But I don't know. No, I think that Netflix show is the way to get in, not these games, because that show is also it's great, by the way.
Well, I watched a Netflix show, but I'm unfortunately not able to get into the subject matter of the Netflix show. I have seen people talk about this show, but I want to make a really enthusiastic recommendation. Not to you, Bryce, because I don't think this is your kind of show. But I watched a show last week called Brand New Cherry Flavor. Have you heard of Brand New Cherry Flavor? I feel like it's one of those ones like nobody ever heard about. It's the lady. I actually should have looked this up because I should probably know people's names. It's the lady that was in Battle Angel Alita, that was like the Alita character, and then Catherine Keener. And it's this lady. This woman comes to L.A. in the 90s to like sell her indie movie, and then like some bad shit goes down in the movie industry, and then she kind of hooks up with this witch to get revenge, and it's like kind of one part Lynch and like one part Cronenbergian body horror, and then like also some of that like here's some like the Hollywood, the scummery of Hollywood and the wheels and the deals and that sort of thing. I mean, I'll say this, like at the end of the first episode, the main character pukes a kitten, like throws up a live kitten.
Okay.
And it kind of just gets a little bit more gross from there. It's like 8 40-minute episodes, like, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it was good. It wasn't it had some good spooky stuff, it had some good body horror stuff, it had some good like these good characters that were all yelling at each other, and this kind of cool plot. It's based on like the first half of a book. I like Catherine Keener a lot. I like, and then I'd never seen the Battle Angel Alita lady. What is her name?
Rosa Salazar?
Yes. I hadn't seen her in anything else, and I hadn't, except for Battle Angel Alita, so I hadn't seen her with like regular size non-CGI eyeballs, and it was like, oh, no, she's fine with regular non-CGI eyeballs. Also, the guy that plays Jason in The Good Place was in there as just like a friend of hers, and it was interesting to see that guy playing a non-stupid Florida man because I so associate him with The Good Place. But
wow, okay,
yeah.
I think I did hear someone talk positively about this show, but yeah, I'm watching the trailer and this doesn't seem like one of Bryce's shows.
No,
it seems neat.
Yep. I also finished. I talked last week. I finished. I finally found a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure that I was into, and I finished Diamond is Unbreakable, which was very good, and I liked it. I'm really glad that I went and found non-censored versions, which was my problem last week, is that all of the streaming versions are the TV versions, which are censored versions, so you have to get the Blu-ray versions.
How were they set, like language for language or for scenes?
Violence. Basically, like anytime there's any blood or gore, there's just like a big black shadow over it. So like there's a point where the one I was talking about, there's a point where this guy's hand gets all messed up, and like it's like got all these like sores and open wounds and stuff on it. And when they show the close up of the hand in the censored version, it's just like the entire hand has been colored over with black.
Oh, wow! Yeah, I'm looking at it. It almost looks like I'm looking at a still frame, and it looks like, you know, when like a film cell has been like burnt. Like it is unartfully just a big black blur drawn over. Wow, what the fuck?
So I watched like the first half of that series, and I noticed, I was like, every single time there's violence, it's just got this big black splotch over it, and the violence was escalating, and I was like, well, I want to see the violence. I'm a grown up. You don't have to protect me from the violence. So I went and I found the Blu-ray copies, and so yeah, and I'm gonna move on to the next one, Golden Wind or something like that. I want to see how that goes, but I've been trying to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for a long time. I didn't like it when it was just the beefy beef boys beefing along, but like at Diamond is Unbreakable is where it started to shift into like what I would consider the fabulous JoJo, like where everything is very fabulous. There's a lot of like weird colors, and the characters are a little bit more just kind of ostentatious and weird, and I liked that more than the beefy boys. So
nice.
But yep. All right, let's see if we can't do a podcast. Let's see. Place your bets now, ladies and gentlemen. Can Bryce and I do a podcast that doesn't last for 1 billion years? I don't know. I don't want to see how they're.
I don't want to jinx us, but looking at I don't see how that's possible today. I don't see how that's possible today.
All right, well let's give it the old college try. We actually knew that this was coming, but we got some like a kind of a deeper dive into the Marvel Suns game that was announced at Gamescom, which is the horror-themed Firaxis strategy / card game. Set in the Marvel universe, where like, you know, you got your Captain Marvel, you got your Captain America, and your Iron Man, and then they're hooking up with like Ghost Rider and Doctor Strange and Blade to fight like these weird Cthulhu monsters. and then it's a tactics game made by the XCOM people.
And also watching this trailer, they make it very clear there's also like a Persona style like relationship system where you are like living with these Avengers and like creating bonds.
Yep, you gotta go talk to Stephen Strange when you're between missions to see, or you can go have a walk with Blade, I guess. But yeah, they actually
showed... I'm a vampire. Yeah, I'm a vampire.
It's so funny because I was rewatching What We Do in the Shadows in preparation for the new season. And I saw the Vampiric Council where Wesley Snipes is on Skype. That's great. Anyway, I mean, to be honest, when they announced this, I absolutely love this idea because I think that a lot of times with a property like Marvel, you'll get into a thing where like it's all an action game, right? It's this kind of wide, like, oh, well, we need to make it as accessible to the largest number of people as humanly possible, which I feel like a lot of times ends up with you end up with a really bland game like the Avengers game that we currently have. And this, it's like they kind of gave them carte blanche to go do some crazy shit. I mean, it's a tactics game, right? That already is going to axe out most of the people that are more interested in like an action game. In fact, I was watching the replay of the stream, and I made the mistake of looking at the YouTube chat, and it was just furious. People that were furious about like the fact that this was a tactics game, the fact that it was Marvel's Sons, the fact that there were some people that were like, I like a tactics game, but it's got cards in it, so go fuck yourself. You're history's greatest monster for making a video game that has cards in it. And like everybody's like, it's a phone game. Why is the phone game is better than this? The Crystal Dynamics game is better than this. And I'm just like, wow, I do not have your pulse, the internet, because
I mean, yeah.
I tried playing that the main Avengers game, Marvel's Avengers. I've tried playing it multiple times, and boy, it's not. It's just so kind of generic.
Generic is high. Like, I don't really care for like brawler games, which I assume is what most of that is, if it's not just a total DPS looter. But yeah, it's not like I hear the campaign is good, but it's not like it should be a fun game. I don't really honestly care about Marvel stories, so yeah, you should be able to have like it's hearing that the game is mediocre is what keeps me away.
Yep. So some of the stuff that we learned from this, the main character is going to be fully customizable in both, like, there's kind of some outfit stuff that you can do, and then also there was some gameplay mechanics where you can make them kind of more offensive oriented or more defensive healing oriented. I assume that's just going to be, a couple of different trees that you can go down. It looks like this was a little strange to me. It looks like when you go into the battles that there's going to be 3 characters, which is a strange number to me. I think I would have expected 4 or more, but 3 just seemed like, I guess it's tuned for like synergies and various things. And I'm curious if you always have to bring the new OC main character with you, because then it's like you get to pick 2 of your faves to bring with you. And then, like you were talking about, there's this kind of action, this kind of tactics card game, which they showed off a little bit, but it was very sizzly. They didn't go into like very deep mechanics or anything. But then in between, they really did show off this kind of, you're going to walk around in third person in this big headquarters and talk, have dialogue trees and train with people and develop stuff. So there's going to be like this kind of big hub where you do, your role playing stuff, and then you're going to go out and go on missions. I mean, every single part of what I've just said is like in the plus column for me. Like, I loved XCOM. I liked XCOM 2. I liked XCOM Chimera Squad. I liked Firaxis. I liked it. I've liked Firaxis stuff for a long time, and the graphics that they showed, the story kind of conceit. I like the focusing on magic as opposed to, AIM is back. It's AIM again. Oh no, look out for AIM. And there's Hydra is in here, but it's like I think they're like playing into that kind of, as Hydra is kind of like Nazis, you're kind of playing into that Hellboy style, like World War II Nazi Arcanum. Like the characters have this kind of look to them that kind of reminds me of that. Yeah, so I don't know. I've been talking for 40 minutes. Bryce, tell me tell me what you think.
It's interesting because it does feel like they showed off a lot and then left a lot unsaid. Like they talk the interpersonal stuff, the relationship stuff with the superheroes, but then also like they say, oh yeah, there's hours of gameplay just in our hub in the little Hogwarts mansion. Mm-hmm. So like, okay, so am I going to be spending hours outside of the tactics, and what is the ultimate balance of the game, right? Like XCOM, you think of XCOM, you're very in each battle, and then you have some light high level strategy, which makes me think I don't know, I'm trying to figure out where this game fits, right? Is this just is this a campaign game? Is this, there's going to be a multiplayer, procedural, infinite game element to it? I don't know. And so that makes it weird for me to feel like I get a good handle on what parts of this are good and what parts of this are bad. If this is just like, hey, here's a single campaign, then I probably don't need to spend a ton of time at the Hogwarts mansion. But if this is a big procedural thing and there's lots of strategy, then I don't know. Does any of that resonate?
Yeah, no, I get it. I think that for my money, what I'm doing is I'm just mapping this onto XCOM in my brain. So it's like if you took all the base stuff from XCOM, and I think that if you took the base stuff, the management stuff, and the base in XCOM, and then added some light, like RPG dialogue tree, get to know people stuff, especially I think that they could do a really good job with that, especially if they have if it's kind of like you were talking about Persona, like where like if you talk to Stephen Strange a lot, then you can get your thing up with him, but like you might have to play the game a second time. Like if they give you the opportunity to max out your interactions with everybody, like then maybe you're just playing one really big RPG, or maybe you go back and you play it and this time you're going to do DPS instead of healing, and you're going to talk to Blade a lot more than Stephen Strange. I was actually, while you were talking about it, I was even thinking it would be interesting if they took some of the readiness. In fact, that's kind of what it seems like, that some of the readiness bonus stuff that you got in XCOM based on like research and building stuff in the hub, if that was more mapped onto your relationship with the other people, kind of a la Persona, where like instead of developing like a laser cannon, you talk to Stephen Strange and then you get this card that's really powerful that you can play in battle next time because of your relationship, or do some kind of like team up attack or something. I don't know. But that's all just basically me like spitballing, because it's very flashy. It was like 6 minutes and it was an overview of a really complicated thing. I mean, they had like a 40-minute stream, but it was a lot of like, I don't know. There was a point at the end where they were just like, can you fuck them? Like, is there, like, can you have sex with Doctor Strange? And they were like, well, you can become really good friends. And I'm like, okay, cool. Thanks, guys. That's really what I'm into over here. But I don't know. I just like something different, and this looks really different. And so, and Firaxis ain't done me wrong in a while. So I'll probably give it a shot.
Yeah, I'd certainly be interested in it, at least. Yeah.
Yep. Unless you can buy cards with real money. If they but Firaxis isn't generally that company. But if they made like a whole kind of pay to win type of thing, I mean, I guess 2K either owns or does the publishing stuff for Firaxis, right. And 2K is really hot on that. But then like Chimera Squad came out in 2020, and that didn't have microtransactions. That was just a pure single player campaign that lasted for about 12 to 14 hours. So I don't know.
Apparently Firaxis have said that it will not be pay to win. It will there will be cosmetic character skins for purchase that do not affect gameplay balance in any way, unquote.
Okay. Well, that's about as good as you can get in 2021. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, I don't know. I feel like I need to like prejudge this game in saying like I from what even the 6 minutes that I've seen, I want it to be even more of a one-time single player experience. I want it to be like a really crafted story campaign and not very generative. I don't want to grind out levels with Blade. Like I'm only going to have so much tolerance for a game that is a live services light.
I guess, I mean, again, I don't know anything, but from my experience with the Firaxis Tactics game, I actually like to play them multiple times because I find the emergent gameplay of the tactics sections to be so dynamic and challenging in a way that's not rote of just doing the same thing over and over again, that it's really fun. Like I could probably start up XCOM on a weekend where I didn't have anything to do and then just end up marathoning through XCOM because the process of building up and kind of getting over the challenge, and then it's really compelling in a way where like what you're doing isn't necessarily that different, but it's always incredibly rewarding for me in XCOM specifically. So whether this is the same, who can say?
Yeah, that's just my big question is how close to XCOM is this?
Yep. Well, Dead Space appears to be very close to the original Dead Space. How's that for transitions, everybody? There was a 40-minute Dead Space thing where they jerked off Dead Space just a lot. It was interesting. Well, no, it wasn't. It was, I don't know. They showed a very small bit of Dead Space. They had a kind of an interesting tech demo where they took the original architecture of a scene and then like reskinned it and put in new lighting effects and new particle effects and and put Isaac in it, and they kind of showed. So that was cool, kind of taking the original stuff. There was a part in this stream. This is a 40-minute stream, or there was I sent Bryce like a 10-minute one, but there was also a horrible 40-minute one. They did show an interesting thing where they talked about how like some of the weapons from the previous Dead Space weren't great at like the pistol in Dead Space is great at dismembering the necromorphs, right? So you want to take the necromorph's limbs off. That's the way you kill them. You don't kill them with headshots. You kill them by taking other limbs off. And the starter pistol that you get has this thing where you turn it from vertical to horizontal, which is great for lining up shots to cut off specific limbs, like legs are better horizontal and arms are better vertical. But then there's like a machine gun, and they were talking about how like the machine gun isn't as effective at doing anything, so they're trying to implement this new system where you can literally shred the flesh off of the necromorph so that it's just bone, as a secondary way of weakening them. One of the big announcements was that the guy that did the voice actor for Isaac is back, and so in the first Dead Space, Isaac was a completely silent protagonist and had no lines. There are going to be lines in this. They showed off a bunch of different stuff. This is a really, 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 really early build, and they're being very vague about a lot of different things. Well, what I thought was kind of interesting is when I watched the full 40-minute thing, they seem to be inviting like, hey, this is how far we are. Hey, the internet, do you hate any of this? Tell us, and we'll take your feedback into account. And I was like, wow, that's a bold move, Cotton. You'd never want to ask the internet for its opinion.
Well, and I think we're in such a weird place with remakes right now, right? Where we've had good ones lately, but people have been burnt by remakes or reboots, and there's so much money that goes into this, right? Like this, Dead Space has a lot of franchise potential. If it can kind of show mainstream appeal. So like I think it's smart to be like, we're still very early in the game, but this is some of what it looks like. I kind of appreciate that because so many developers, not that I think all developers have to do it, but I think a lot of developers are cagey about for that exact reason. So it's interesting. to see this.
Yeah. Also, Motive, the studio that's making this, is the studio that made that Star Wars Squadrons game, and I really, really enjoyed the Star Wars Squadrons game. I never even played it online, but it was $40. It's about a 8 to 12 hour campaign with a little bit of multiplayer. Or there was definitely multiplayer, and there's a big community with the multiplayer, but there was some replay value with going in to try to get like specific achievements for doing certain things that would unlock cosmetic stuff. But if this is like the one studio at EA that I have enjoyed what they've done recently, so I'm more interested than not in what they're doing. I guess me personally, I'm not as excited by something like this as I am by something like Marvel the Midnight Suns, which is a fairly original thing, as opposed to like, well, you all liked Dead Space, right? Let's drag Dead Space back out and see if we can get it right this time. I mean, that's the big question, right? Is Dead Space had a great first game, a great second game, and then fell on its face in the third game because there were a lot of studio demands that, it is horrible microtransaction stuff. It was made to be played as like a co-op game, and the story was kind of weak. So I guess the question is, if they're just remaking the first game with extra and then they move on to the second one, can they stick the landing? Because I feel like it was a promising franchise, and then after the third game came out, it's just like everybody was like, oh, all right. It turns out it was crap after all, everybody. The end. Because up until this happened, I mean, people would speak fondly of Dead Space, but I didn't know anybody who was just like super, super, super into it. But
maybe that's the play. Maybe the play is to like do another lap over the Dead Space, that trilogy of games, and see if you can make a spin-off or make a fourth or something. But that's an expensive prospect too. So yeah, but it's cool. It's cool that they're giving it a lot of attention.
Yep. Let's see. Now let us move on to controversy. Last week, Saints Row was announced. The new Saints Row reboot was announced, and everybody kind of hated it, except for me, because I don't care about Saints Row, or I like Saints Row, but like rebooting it and not making it as crazy is not like offensive to me or anything. Like, I care if the game is fun, not whether Shondi and Johnny Gat are in it. It just doesn't matter to me. But this week we got a 7-minute video where they kind of showed off some more of the actual gameplay, the world, the individual characters. The whole thing has this kind of Southwestern vibe to it. It seems like it's going to be these kind of they're obviously going back to the kind of more grounded roots of Saints Row. They're doing this kind of 4 characters that are trying to like build this gang and take down these other gangs. And I mean, I don't know, like it looks fine to me. Like, it looks like a goofy Saints Row game. I get that it's not the one with the, where you've become president of the United States, you get abducted by aliens and have superpowers in the Matrix. But like, that's all right. Saints Row 2 is good as well. And just because they aren't swearing like like every 4 seconds in this trailer doesn't mean that it's bad. At least to me, it doesn't. It looks fine to me. Did you have any strong feelings about Saints Row when this was announced last week, Bryce?
I don't have any affinity to let's say the story style of the original Saints Row games. Like the thing I did not care about in the Saints Row games was the story, because they were so juvenile and just not my sense of humor. So I can understand where if that game series left a strong impression on you, you would hate to see that kind of go away. But as someone who really never liked the story or kind of the tone of those original games, like, I think this is interesting. I think it's neat to kind of give it a different, put it in a different location, make it a little more serious. I know I saw people comparing it, I think, derogatorily to Watch Dogs 2, which is like Watch Dogs 2 is a great game, and even the boring story is like not that bad.
I don't know.
It's bad, but it's not that bad.
Watch Dogs 2 is the last Ubisoft game. Well, that Phoenix Rising was the last Ubisoft game I really liked. But Watch Dogs 2 is the best Watch Dogs in my opinion. Like it actually had something to say and went and said it. So yeah, if that's where we're at, if there's like this looks like Watch Dogs 2, and I'd be like, woo, yeah, all right, great. I don't know. I mean, like as somebody who played the Watch Dogs, like it reminds me more of like part 2. I never played part 1, but part 2 was like, there was a mission in part 2 where you drove around with a septic tank and sprayed it on houses to lower the property values, right? But part 3 had like the zombie mission and the helicarrier and Mayor Burt Reynolds and part 4 you were the president, you went to space, it was Mass Effect and whatnot. So this just seems like it's more grounded than that. And the thing I really want to like focus on here, right, is like part 4 everybody liked, right? And then technically part 5 of Saints Row was Get Out of Hell, which everybody kind of universally didn't like, where they went even crazier. They were like, now you're gonna fight Satan, and it was like maybe that's a little too much. And then after that was Agents of Mayhem, which was made by the same team and was kind of Saints Row, but it was a little bit weird and didn't quite hit. So it seems like the trajectory that they were going wasn't really working. So if this is what you need to get back to something that works, I'm not about to complain about that.
Yeah, I would give this a try if only because it feels like I don't know. It feels like giving the whole Saints Row formula a second look, and I think that's not the worst thing that you could do, rather than kind of rehashing just fucking poop jokes for 60 hours.
I guess I tell you what the weird thing is about this is that I'm not sure. I think that there's I'm not like, okay, this is not as interesting to me as either the concept of the Dead Space reboot, if done well. I'm interested in the Marvel Midnight Suns thing. I'm really interested in, and I'm curious because I just recently went back and was replaying Red Dead Redemption 2 because Jason and I never finished our playthrough of it, and I deleted all my save games. So I had a problem with Ghost of Tsushima, and I did some stupid shit, and I ended up deleting every PlayStation save game that I had. So I had one that was like 20% of the way through the game, and I was going back and I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and it was like, well, I might be kind of burned out on open world games. Like the open world game has kind of shown me its butt, where it's like, oh, this is just a way now. It's very formulaic. It's a way to pad out the time by making you go from place to place. Like, a lot of times the amount of actual things you can do in the world is very limited. Like it's not as in the beginning, it was like you would see a game like this and be like, oh man, I could do anything. And now that you've played a bunch of open world games, it's like, well, you're going to drive to the spot, you're going to get the mission briefing, you're going to drive to the next spot, you're going to shoot a bunch of people, you're going to get your car, you're going to drive away, you're going to get the reward, and then you're going to go back and rinse and repeat for 40 hours until you're done. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I like that Phoenix Rising game, which was open world, but it didn't necessarily need to be. But I was just thinking about the stuff that I've been playing recently and how, I don't know, I guess what I'm asking are we over the open world game as being like, is it just like a genre that can do whatever, as opposed to like, look, it's a huge open world and everybody's like, ooh, because I don't know.
I wonder if there is, from a design or maybe a development side, where for certain genres of games it's just easier, or maybe not easier, but it's simpler to just make one large open space and have the game populate it, right? Like Saints, like let's take Saints Row, right? Like, could you do Saints Row if it was just a chain of set pieces, like would that feel that would feel to me like a very different game where if we're talking about, like, I don't know, a single player adventure game where you're just levels, right? I mean, we're fundamentally talking about levels versus not levels.
Yeah.
I agree though. Like I played Watch Dogs 3 a while back, and
that game sucks.
it sucks. There is really all of the stuff that takes advantage of the open world are the things that feel very low effort. Doing little side missions, collecting things, finding hidden puzzles, and it all feels like an excuse to have the open world rather than a synergy between the concept of having this big open space and giving the player all this freedom. I don't know. It's strange because you would think I would assume doing an open world game would be so expensive and so cost prohibitive that we wouldn't be seeing as many as we do even today. But like Cyberpunk, like there's no reason Cyberpunk is an open world game, but it is. Why?
I guess it's part of it too. Could very well be that right now the concept is a little poisoned in my brain because of playing Red Dead 2, where it's like I really liked Red Dead Redemption 2 when it came out, but going back and replaying it, it's like there's no fast travel. You've got all this downtime. There's all of these kind of things that inconvenience the player in the name of like authenticism and like this, your guns get dirty and you've got to clean your guns. And do you have any gun oil? And like, my horse is dirty. I got to brush my horse. And like, oh, you got to go to the mission, but there's no such thing as fast travel. So you got to turn on the cinematic mode and just watch Arthur run. And it's like, oh my fuck, like, could you guys not have focused on like, is this fun? Could you not have asked that question first about like, I don't know.
I wonder if there is just if there has to be a trade-off in terms of like take Red Dead, right? They I don't know. It's like a game tax. It's a fun tax, right? You can't have too much fun, right? You gotta have reasons to stop and make you go and clean your guns or go and eat and fill your cores and all of that stuff. You can't just let people not spend 80 hours in your game because it took you hundreds of millions of dollars to build this open world. Because it's a Wild West game, and of course you should be in the Wild. This is the pinnacle of game design, giving people a free world. But it is a tough trade off because it's like why would you intentionally give me something that is annoying?
Yeah. I don't know, but other games don't do that. I don't know. Here, I tell you what. Let's talk about another open world, ostensibly open world game. This is the most non-news I've ever seen. Where like, so Starfield was announced at E3, and they put out these videos today, all of which are less than a minute long, that are concept art with like one of the designers talking over them about like, this is this planet, what it's like New Atlantis, Aquila and Neon, and like this is this planet and this is what's going on. Now I tell you what, I think didn't you and I talk about Starfield? Didn't we do the Bethesda Xbox show right. For E3? Okay, so we can answer a question here. I think we can answer two questions, because one of them is like, is this a pioneering kind of, because in the trailer we didn't see buildings, we saw a ship and we saw kind of a robot, we saw some very primitive stuff that could have very well been like a moon base kind of modern, but here it's like, here's a planet and it's got like skyscrapers and like flying cars and people on it, and it's like, okay, well that answers one question as to the kind of technological level in the game. Also, part of the voiceover for this New Atlantis one was talking about different races and genders and species. So I'm wondering whether that indicates that we're going to have aliens, right? That we're going to have like people and there's going to be aliens and they're all mixed together, and we're in that kind of, because the trailer was so short and so abrupt that it could have been, it could have been Kerbal Space Program, or it could have been Firefly, or it could have been Star Trek, and like there was no way to know what kind of sci-fi we're getting. But this is narrowing in a little bit more on a an advanced, there's cities. What, the one for Neon, it's like a big
sea lab.
Yeah, it's like a big sea lab, but then they like found this fish that has drugs in it, and then they decided that being fishermen was stupid, so they turned the place into a big pleasure palace where people can come and do their fish drugs. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Give me them fish drugs.
Yeah. That's all very great world building. I want to know what it looks like I want to know what it looks like translated into a game. That's all great. Oh my gosh. It's a pleasure city built on top of an oil derrick. Oh my god, that's so great. But if I turn on the game and it's just like the Oblivion NPCs staring at you again, I'm gonna be a little not disappointed, because I don't really think I have expectations, but I'm gonna feel like they are really, I don't know if they are massaging this game or not, because they're describing a lot of things. Like, they've got this great concept art, but I think if you got rid of all this concept art and you took all those story ideas, right, about the fishing or the underwater, what have you, wouldn't it be very similar to Outer Worlds?
Yes.
Would you expect that game to look like Outer Worlds to some degree?
Yeah. Yes, I would, and that's a very good point. I mean, I think that it's while you were talking, I was thinking along those lines, is that I don't feel like we normally see this thing where they show us like something brand new and shiny that they know that everybody's going to be like super interested in, and then they don't have. I mean, we saw the trailer for I keep coming back to it, but we saw the trailer for the Midnight Suns thing at the Gamescom opening, and then like 3 or 4 days later, they had 6 minutes worth of gameplay footage and 20 minutes worth of Will They Bone with one of the developers. And here it's like they showed us this fancy trailer, and then just like, this is concept art. This is animated concept art. Like, you could have shown us this a year ago. This tells you very little about about the game outside of the little crummies that you're picking up off the ground. So, yeah, I'm with you on show us the damn game. But it's interesting because now that you mention it, it does kind of, you have to, the idea that like, okay, this is Bethesda, those kind of concepts. Are we just looking at a serious Outer Worlds? Is it just the Outer Worlds, except not as silly and
ironic?
Kind of crazy corporation stuff and the funky tech that does silly things. Are we looking at a gritty, realistic Outer Worlds? And from this concept art, maybe. I mean, again, it's hard to say because there's no information.
Right. They got a year though. They have a year. That game's not out for over a year. So, that's a long marketing cycle that we are only at the beginning of.
Tell me about the fish drugs. Tell me more about the fish drugs, Bethesda. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Can I take them? What do they do? Can I
what
smuggle?
What is the closest thing on Earth?
Yeah. Can I smuggle fish drugs out of the city and then sell them to the guys at the mining camp or in the weird skyscraper? Likewise, we got a lot of last week, a bunch of different outlets got looks at Elden Ring, and I'm a little more interested after reading some of these. I picked a Polygon one for the thing that I sent over to you. I don't know if you got a chance to read through this, but it's okay. So far, I've been a little bit down on Elden Ring because the trailers have been like, look at these Dark Souls ass monsters. A guy's riding a horse, like, oh, it's Dark Souls, but open world. And it's like, well, Dark Souls was open world. And they're like, no, there's going to be like big wide fields full of stuff. But like some of the stuff that they're talking about here, does one of the things I liked about Sekiro was that Sekiro felt different than Souls in terms of like movement, because you had like a jump button and this grapple button, and there were ways to do like stealth attacks to get around people, whereas like Bloodborne and Dark Souls have jump buttons, but they're little tiny hops and you can use them for a few different things. But part of this article was talking about oh, you come to a castle and there's like a front way in, but there's an NPC there that's like, hey, there's a back way. If you climb up the back of this mountain, you can get around. Talking about like, oh, there's caravans and you can hide in the bushes and ambush them, or you can fight from your horse. These are things that I don't feel, I mean, like, again, Sekiro, I think that what I got out of this was that there was a stealth and movement element in Sekiro that was not present in Souls, and the idea of taking that movement, that freedom of movement, which was definitely not present in any of the Souls game, and adding it to a Souls game, and then taking both of those concepts and adding them to a much more open map that has more like procedural things that are happening, as opposed to the very rigid, like, when you go to the bonfire in Dark Souls or in Bloodborne or in Sekiro, it just resets everything, and everything is exactly the same way as it was before. And the idea of having a world that has a little bit more dynamism to it, that you can, you know, kind of come at things in different ways based on the environment, is interesting. Like, this Polygon article is titled "Elden Ring might be From Software's Breath of the Wild," and I think that's a little much. But from what they're describing, it sounds like there's a lot more going on than just what I saw initially. Because when you make a sizzle reel for this stuff, it's like you just see these Miyazaki Dark Souls style characters fighting Dark Souls style monsters in a Dark Souls looking place, and it's like, that's just Dark Souls. Whereas this, because they haven't shown like a big gameplay slice, they've shown sizzle reels, and I think I'd like to see whatever it is that all these reporters got to see. Anyway,
well, you know, we were talking about open world games earlier with Saints Row. Do you feel like, say Dark Souls 3, right? Do you think Dark Souls 3 would be improved? I'm going to ask this question as someone who does not know what Dark Souls 3 is. But would Dark Souls 3 or any of these other Souls-like games be improved by having a fully connected game world?
Well, the thing is that it's kind of hard to describe, because it's one of those weird things where you get in where it's like, oh, it's like Dark Souls but open world, and it's like, right, but Dark Souls is open world. Like, you can go look at a map of Dark Souls and every area is connected to every other area. Like in Dark Souls 1, everything was geometrically hooked together. So like, to get to the catacombs, you go just down on the map, and like, in order to get to this place, you had to go through this one place, and you had to go over this bridge and then behind this thing. Right. So like, think of it more as like, if you had traditional levels from a video game, except that the end of the next level oozed into the beginning of the level after that, and then if you wanted to like go back to your main base, you had to find shortcuts to get back through those levels. So it was kind of an open world, but this is talking about like big field, right? Like, you're riding it's so big you need a horse to get through it,
right?
And well, I don't know.
I think that's it sounds like the big difference, right? Is unlike say in Dark Souls, right? The levels are connected, but it's not like there's traversal. Does that make sense? You're not going from dungeon to dungeon. Like, you have to go, I'm here at this dungeon, I need to transit over to the other dungeon with this kind of empty space. It's all just the entirety of the levels are kind of abut each other. Is that how you would describe Dark Souls? Because that I think would be the difference here with an open world, of having negative space.
A little bit. I mean, a lot of times, like, the levels connect to each other, but it's not just like one big path, right? So like, in order to get to the catacombs, you'll go back through the levels that you've been going through to go to the like a hub and spoke kind of thing, and then so you will backtrack through places that you've been. But the thing is that they're always full of, it's just going through the same level backwards. But then there's shortcuts. I don't really know how to describe it more than like imagine if like a Hitman levels were all glued together at the edges, right? And then in order to do something, you had to go back to Sapienza through, some of the other levels, and you had to kind of, there were doors that opened up that you could do, kind of like that. But then, so the question here, I guess, is, like, I was just talking about Red Dead 2, right? And Red Dead 2's open world is very just, it's so empty that you could turn on the black bars and just let the horse ride through it. Whereas Breath of the Wild's open world is so dynamic that when you run through, you're constantly tripping over enemy camps and like shrines, and here's another thing to do. Like, if this world has that density, then it could be really cool, because it would take that same Dark Souls kind of like discovering the world thing and open it up even more than it was. So as opposed to funneling you through levels, having you be in a larger open world would give you more like freedom to go, oh, there's a bog over there, I'm going to go see what's in that bog. Oh, look, there's a dungeon in this bog, I wonder what's in this dungeon. Oh shit, there's a dragon in that dungeon, that's too much for me, let me make. I mean, the one of the big things from a lot of these previews is that this game literally has a map, and that none of the previous Souls games have had a map. So like, it's so big that you need to be able to set a waypoint to find stuff. And it seems so weird to be talking about that as like this big revolutionary thing, but it really is for this franchise. So I don't know.
I wonder what this ends up looking more like, whether it looks more like what was that Uncharted not DLC, but that mini Uncharted game that had an open world hub.
The one with Chloe and what's her face? Golden Compass. That's not it.
No, whatever it was, it's not 4. It was like the little half game that they made after 4. But I wonder if it's going to be something like that, where the open world is like a functional space, or if it'll be something like, either Red Dead or like Shadow of the Colossus, right? Where you have this very large space between dedicated dungeon spaces. It'll be interesting. Because there's a lot of room for atmosphere in negative space.
I like that. And then I'm also I don't really know how much to express this, but I'm wondering how much influence George R.R. Martin's writing is going to have on it, because this will be the first time that one of these Souls, it'll be one of the first time that one of these Miyazaki games isn't his game, right? He wrote and directed the rest of them, so it'll be outside of Dark Souls 2, I believe, but it'll be interesting to see how much that influences whether it feels that much different than a Souls game. That's the main thing that I'm into it for, is just like, I don't want to play just another Souls game. Like, I played a bunch of them, I don't need just another one. Like, I'd rather them take that creativity and funnel it into something that's not just fan service essentially for the Souls community. And it sounds like this might be different, so who could say? We got a couple of announcements here. THQ Nordic is turning 10, and they're going to be on September 17th having a big showcase of games that I don't know what all is going to be there, but there have been some kind of rumblings that there's going to be the return of legendary franchises. Who knows what that means?
There's been so much, so much moving around with it. I mean, I guess it happened 10 years ago, but when all of the THQ stuff exploded, I lost any connection between all of those brands and what properties they have. So
yeah,
I don't even know what it would be.
Some of the guesses are, there's been rumors about a new Time Splitters game for a long time.
Oh.
And what was the other one? It was the return of like there was this other franchise. What was it? Kingdoms of Amalur or Red Faction from this article. There hasn't been a Red Faction game in a long time, and like kind of Destruction Tech is kind of hip right now, so I don't know.
You want to talk about a game that like doesn't, I don't know all of the Red Faction games, but that was a game where they let you fuck shit up and quick. Like there are not a lot of games that just let you be really powerful like that. I mean, even Crackdown, which like kind of was the nibbling at the edges of that. But I've always wondered like why we don't have more Red Faction like games where you could just fuck everything up. Let me fuck shit up. We're angry right now. We're in an angry era. We need it.
That was when the Crackdown 3 was supposed to have that like weird cloud-based destroying stuff, And then that kind of, I actually liked Crackdown 3 because I had no expectations, and I was just like, oh, this is fun. I get to fuck shit up for 12 hours and then, like, turn it off. It was on Game Pass, and I didn't, all I did was install it. But how about Supreme Commander? Is Supreme Commander coming back? Yeah. Red Faction is that's a good bet, I feel like. A lot of the other stuff here I can see has been peeled off into other, like Darksiders kind of has its own thing now. Well, I guess is THQ Nordic, did they do Darksiders 3?
Oh, I don't know.
Darksiders 3. Because they still, well, I guess, yeah, they were published by THQ Nordic. So I don't know. We're also going to get, it's been a year, so we're going to get another PlayStation 5 showcase on September 9th, which is supposed to have a, quote, look into the future of the PS5. The most notable thing here is that previously Sony said, like, God of War, like when they would show a thing, though, they would specifically say, like, we're not showing God of War at this thing, and they haven't said that about this thing, so maybe we'll get to see that new God of War. Horizon Forbidden West, I mean, we've seen a lot of that. I don't know, Bryce, I actually this is a good question for you, because as I've moved through 2021, I find myself using my Xbox a lot more than my PlayStation 5, and I'm curious to know, like, if you've been, you know, because what was the last PS5 exclusive was Ghost of Tsushima had the PS5 update.
Director's cut.
Yeah, right. But that wasn't a whole new game. That was just like the Iki Island, and even that was a little like...
But Ratchet back in June.
Okay.
Would probably have been the most recent. Yeah, this will be... I'm interested to see what this will be, because they have had State of Play events in the past year, and they've all been underwhelming, I would say. They've been fine, but it's been like, it's just going to be 20 minutes of Deathloop, and it's cool 20 minutes of Deathloop, get to see some really cool information about Deathloop, but I need to see I need to see games, because you're right, I have not used my PlayStation 5 much at all. I played like 10 minutes of Chicory 3 weeks ago, and that was pretty much it. So I need some excuses to use this big thing, or I'm going to sell it.
Okay, there you go. I actually bought, I wish I could turn my webcam. I bought black plates for my PS5.
Oh, the fins,
yeah. So it's, and then I bought a black PS5 controller to go with it. So
I guess those are custom, right?
Yeah. I bought it from D something. I don't know. I think I said D brand last week, but I'm not sure. I don't think that's it. I think that's some other nonsense. So
I don't know. I like the two-tone look a little bit, because it looks like a fancy little car, but but I know that's not everybody. Other people would rather just have a single color. That makes sense too.
Yeah. Let's see. Speaking of PS5, CD Projekt Red came out and basically said that, like, Cyberpunk 2077 and The Witcher 3, well, specifically Cyberpunk 2077, they said, we would like to have this out this year, but we're not going to say we can guarantee it. The next gen PS5, Xbox Series X version of Cyberpunk 2077 may not come out this year after all. Wasn't this supposed to originally be out like before the end of the year in 2020? Wasn't it supposed to be like, oh, the game launches, then like 2 months later we get the next gen upgrades?
Right. It was supposed to be not long after. Wow, man, it must be a huge shit show over there. Not. I don't even necessarily mean that derisively. Like, this is good communication, telling people, hey, we are continuing to temper expectations and communicate effectively. But these are such big properties. Obviously, Cyberpunk was supposed to be a gigantic launch for many stakeholders, and we're still in this. We're still in all of this, and then the Witcher. They kind of, their whole thing is The Witcher is being done by another company. We can't control that. It's too much. But like, I
seems-
even heard. I even it, we this what this? Come on. What is the whole like? It's weird. It's so strange.
It seems like the pendulum has swung all the way back, where they're just like incredibly gun shy about definitively saying anything, because every time they said something, it turned out to be wrong, or they missed it, or it got messed up somehow. So yeah, it gets the feeling that they're just so much in damage control mode that they really don't want to say for certain anything at all. So
and you know what? Every game has gotten delayed. Every game has been delayed. So the least they can do is say, "Hey, that was that was a different time. When we gave you that release date, that was a different time." So good on them for being communicative, at least.
Yep. In other whipping boy of the podcast news, Marvel's Avengers that we were pooping on earlier got the Denuvo got removed from the PC version, which is to me like I kind of hate this, because I feel like what it means is that the Denuvo is only there for, I mean, why would they, if Denuvo works, why remove it? If it doesn't work, why was it there in the first place? Like, is this a case where, like, now that the game has been out for a couple of years, they just don't give a shit whether anybody pirates it anymore, so now they're going to take it out? Because part of this story was that apparently people running it on the PC have noticed a performance increase, because, or at least it loads faster because it doesn't have to do the dumbass Denuvo check before it can go online. How is Denuvo still a thing? It's never I've never read a story that's like, Denuvo, hooray, they did a great job, it was wonderful.
Well, and you're never going to get anyone to say that, because no one would ever believe it. But a part of it is the expectations for implementing a technology like Denuvo. You don't put Denuvo in your program because you want to keep it secure forever. You put it in there so that you can keep it secure for 3 months, 6 months if you can, because it's all about the initial sales and trying to make piracy just difficult enough that someone will say, fuck it, I'll pay for it. Or even taking that user who finds it difficult to pirate the game, to keep them interested until like a sale, until like, hey, the game's 20% off. Is that enough? It's you get through the Denuvo stuff, because I think my understanding with technologies like Denuvo, when companies contract with them, it is based on that game being secure for X amount of time after launch. And Avengers has been out for a little while now, so it could be that whatever guarantee that they have, or whatever sales they were trying to protect, they have encompassed that time period, and it makes the game perform better when they get rid of it. There's a non-zero number of people who will be glad to see it go, even though it was there to begin with. So I think that's all that this is.
It reminds me of... wasn't there a story a few weeks back that was like, was it Denuvo that was in that like Resident Evil Village that was causing like performance degradation, where they literally... they hacked it out and suddenly the game ran like 25% better on just across the board on PCs. Like,
yeah,
such a. I mean, I'm not like pro piracy or anything, but I still come back to the idea that I don't know. I mean, I guess what you're saying makes sense, in that like they know they're never going to stop all piracy. It's just you want to make it as hard as possible early on, so that people don't just immediately steal the game right out the gate, because somebody, if the copy protection isn't cracked, then somebody might consider buying the game as opposed to waiting for the workaround for the security, because they're so excited to play the game. If they can't just easily just grab it off a torrent site and then bing bang boom, you're good to go.
And I think maybe not necessarily the developers, but I bet a publisher who is involved in that decision-making process is probably okay if performance takes a 10 or 20% hit, if that means you can protect sales for a little while and then get to champion, hey, that anti-piracy sucked, but hey, now it's gone and your game runs even better. Like, not that they're intentionally sandbagging themselves, but I think that they are okay with the consequences of that.
Fair enough. All right, let's do one or two more of these and we'll take a quick break. Pokemon Go. There's been a big kind of kerfuffle with Pokemon Go where so originally you had to be 40 meters from a Pokestop in order to poke the balls, whatever you do in Pokemon Go. I didn't play it. During the pandemic, they basically like extended that to 80 meters because you don't want to be next to people when you're going with your Pokemon. And then recently they decided they wanted to reduce it back to the same 40 meters. And a lot of people were like, well, like a lot of people just considered that 80-meter extension to just be like a better option for the game in general, regardless of pandemic, right? That having that extra space just was a better option overall. And then we got rise of Delta, various different places, so there was a lot of like kind of outrage about it. Niantic actually, I believe, put out a really condescending statement about how they were going to create like a hot task force to consider the feedback that they got from this change and then act accordingly. Well, they've decided that they're just going to leave. They're going to leave it at 80 meters instead of 40, which is good because I mean, I don't at this point you don't need to get close to other human beings to play the Pokemon game,
right?
Yeah, especially
for they're still doing lots of raids and community things within Pokemon Go. So there are, even as recently as a few weeks ago, I was visiting with some friends who wanted to go out and do Pokemon Go stuff. And if you're in an area where that community is very popular, 100 and some feet is not a lot of space to fit multiple people in, at these little public spots. I guess we haven't talked about this. I played a little bit of that Witcher Pokemon Go game, the Monster Hunt, whatever. And that's one of the things I really don't like about it is the range that you have to be from like monsters or whatever is really, really small. And it feels really weird to like be out and around and near people's homes and going back and forth in people's neighborhoods. I wish they would make that a little bigger because it's a weird thing. So like, yeah.
Yep. And then I think last before we go, this is kind of a footnote to the end of this kind of long thing. So I've talked a few over the weeks about Twitch. And there's this new. I get the impression that the frequency of this hate raid stuff that people are talking about has gotten worse over time. Of people basically bringing in a bunch of bots to essentially spam into your stream homophobic stuff, transphobic stuff, racist stuff, and then you got to take care of it. And so there have been a lot of streamers who have wanted Twitch to take a more active role in trying to stop this stuff because Twitch does take 50% of your sub stuff, which is quite a bit. And so the idea that it's like, well, you can either put and this is the short version, but the idea, you can put your stream in sub only mode, but that's going to reduce the number of people who you get into your stream who just find your stream and they're like, oh, I like this person, because a lot of people are going to come in, they're going to try to chat. When they find out that they can't do it, they're just gonna be like, fuck that, I'm out of here. Or you can not have yourself in that mode and leave yourself open to a big hate raid of bots coming in to fuck up your whole stream. So it's kind of there's not a good solution. Like I've seen some people really pedantically be like, just put it in streamer only mode. And it's like, right, but if you're looking to expand if you're looking to grow, you want randos to come in, and a lot of randos are not going to wait the hour after subbing to be able to chat, right?
The thing that I saw a TikTok video about this that I won't go into the fine details, but if you've got one of these like Stream Deck things, if you're a streamer and you have like a Stream Deck thing, you can, with the software on there, set it up so if you get a hate raid, and really we should be talking about Twitch's ability to do something at this part of the process where you get a hate raid, but if you get a hate raid, you can set up like multi-actions to say, okay, follower only chat, and you have to be a follower for like 10 minutes. oh, and I'm going to start a 60-minute ad so that if any of these are real people, then they'll just watch an ad, and then this button will clear the chat so all of these messages go away and go into emote only mode or whatever. It's like that's a consumer product solving this structural infrastructure, or this platform issue. But there are, at least if you are fortunate enough to have a device like that, there are some options out there for you. And I mean, you can do that stuff manually, but it's a lot, it's because when you're streaming, you're usually one person doing it. It's a lot of pressure, and then suddenly you get all of this attention, all this negative attention. And that is this huge gravity well, especially if you whether you're a big streamer or not.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think I saw very early on in this was just turning on the option to accept raids, because the raid function is a function of the Twitch software. So like if somebody, turning on an option that says like so and so wants to raid, do you want to accept that? Like that would be a way to solve this. But all this stuff culminated in last week. Some people, there was a kind of an organization to take a day off Twitch for Twitch streamers to not stream on, I believe it was Wednesday of this last week, in order to kind of protest this and be like, hey, Twitch, do something. And apparently they dropped the what? It was like 22% of the peak traffic for what they would normally say that day was, and it was 4.5 million concurrent viewers. It was down to 3.5. So there was some, I mean, it wasn't like, a huge blackout or anything, but there was something where, if you ran Twitch, it would be nice. This is just a lot of negative attention for Twitch, and Twitch gets constant negative attention. It would be nice if they were just like, this shouldn't be the most difficult problem to solve, right? Like what you just said, automating that task into something that you could have a mod that kind of has a one, like that has a function in chat, or like a kind of an oh shit button, that if you're a mod that you could just hit that button and be like, program those actions that you're talking about on the stream deck, but into the actual Twitch interface, accept raids, things like that. It would be nice if they just did something as opposed to not.
What I think, I think the difficulties on the platform side, this is complete speculation, I do not know, but my guesses would be that the streaming to really any platform, but especially Twitch, there's not, as a streamer, it would be completely valid to do a stream where you have no interface into Twitch, right? You could entirely set up a thing on OBS, stream out to your Twitch channel, and not have any web pages or anything that you are interacting with Twitch, versus say YouTube or like Facebook, where you stream and then you have to go into a web panel and click a thing, and then
right.
you can kind of assume the streamer will keep something up. And so I think it would be great for them to introduce some fundamental platform changes around raids, like having to accept or giving the ability to accept raids, some way of filtering people who are initiating raids, either seeing like, okay, this person wants to raid you. They were playing this game. They were live for this long. They had, this many viewers or something, so that you get indications. Because if you just tell me a random name wants to raid me, I don't have any idea whether that's a small streamer or someone I don't recognize, or if it's a potential hate raid.
Right.
But right now, there's not a mandate is not the right word, but there's not a necessary part of the Twitch interface that you have to go through. And I think that they would, I don't know.
What about
they would not be interested in a solution that is not applicable to all users, whether they're direct into Twitch or whether they're using Streamlabs or all these other additional platforms.
I wonder if you could just create a thing to reverse a raid. Right? Like if you accept, like, let people raid, but then if you see that that's what's happening, give you kind of the one click oh shit button that basically just like undoes the last 10 seconds worth of stuff, kicks everybody who raided, like rejects the raid, deletes anything that they've said, and like just like that way, and you wouldn't have to like ban anybody. It would just be like the desired effect as it starts gets quashed right away, with a single input from a streamer, instead of having to have mod tools and all these different things that are set up. Just kind of, I don't know, but
Yeah, if they could find a way to design, because I guess the question is, where do you design that feature?
Yeah.
I think that's the right idea. Is to say like, hey, I guess probably on the Twitch dashboard page, the dashboard.twitch.tv, whatever, of saying having a panel there or having integrating into the chat panel there, maybe. But I think that it will be a tough, at least from a design perspective. The problem will be, where do you put a tool like that? Do you put it in the panel that OBS can hook into that a lot of people use?
Right.
Do you put it into the dashboard page that some people might pull up, but they probably have all these other tools that they use? And so where do you design a product? I think that's an interesting challenge as well. So I don't think it's easy, but
they should look into it.
They need to move
do
quickly.
something.
They need to move quickly,
Yeah.
even if they do something that doesn't work for everybody or is not seamless and perfectly intricate from day one. They need to make more action sooner.
I agree. And with that, we're going to go ahead and take a break. We come back. We got more news to talk about, so stick around. We're back. And this is we took a long break. We took a long break this time, but we are back. And it is time. We have more news. It's time to talk about everybody's favorite thing to talk about, China. I know, Bryce, everybody loves talking about China all the time, right? Is that what it is?
Love it.
Or,
and I love getting into international politics. I'm just an expert at it. So hit me with it, and I'll solve it.
It's funny how we only ever talk about China on the Rage Like podcast when it's like China did something with video games. Like it's not about the world. It's mostly about video games. Yeah. And China has added an additional restriction to video games. Children under 18 will only be able to play video games for 1 hour a day on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. This is actually down from like before. What was it? It was like 3 hours a day.
3 hours. Yeah, it was 3 hours after like a watershed or something. This is. I keep waiting for like the tweet from someone to say like, oh no, it's actually something else. But like this is not only just like 1 hour a day for 3 days. It's also a set hour. Like it is from 8 to 9 p.m. So it's not even like, okay, I can get an hour. This is remarkably rigid.
Yeah. Now it's funny because I feel like we've seen some of this stuff come through in the past, and I actually read a second article that was kind of interesting on Kotaku about this, that was talking about how, like, when we hear that, we're like, that's bullshit, man. But we're thinking about that in terms of like our own video game landscape. The thing is that, as near as I can tell, and I'm pretty sure this is still the case, it was like 15 years ago, China just like banned all consoles, right? So you can't, there's no console games to play. And then there was some like evaluation that I saw in this other article that said that something like 92 to 95% of the games that are like Chinese games being played in China are free to play online, microtransaction laden gunk, right? So it's kind of weird. Like I don't necessarily agree with this, but I think I can see where it's coming from if like all the video games that you had access to were like laden with psychologically manipulative microtransactions and like Skinner box techniques to keep you playing. Like if the idea of a video game, like if we didn't start with the old consoles and the NES, but like our idea of a video game was just phone games, right? Like if all we had access to was phone games, then I feel like we might have a different attitude about video games. Like there was that thing a while back where, because also this organization that did this National Press and Publication Administration is like separate. It's like a bureau in the government, so it's not like it's not like the main government said no, because there's like Chinese esports teams that like factor into the whole thing. I guess that's what I'm saying is that if I have in the past railed about. I think that a lot of the internet has a dim view of those types of Skinnerbox microtransaction laden games, especially when it comes to their effect on kids. And so, like, if that's the only kind of game that's available, I can kind of understand the restriction until you hit 18, and then once you're 18, it's like play as many addictive gambling video games as you feel like now that you're old enough to not be influenced with that dopamine rush when you're younger. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying like it's great, but I think I think they should have better games. I think there should be better games in China than just online free to play garbage.
Well, and I think that is a very plausible rationale for what is happening. Again, I'm an expert in China, so I know entirely what I'm talking about. But I think that's a I think on paper that sounds right. I think where people react to this is because that probably wouldn't be how we try to solve this problem. If we were in a situation where our gaming landscape was primarily, manipulative free-to-play games, that we would set restrictions on the way that those games can interface with underage players. We wouldn't just say it is so bad out there that all underage players can only play during this period of time. Like that wouldn't that it's kind of unthinkable that would be the way that we would solve that, but different cultures, different gaming landscapes. I don't think this is good, but I don't know enough to say to say more about it. It's weird. It just is kind of weird and maybe stinky.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not saying this as like in favor of it, but I remember a while back where I had a very kind of cavalier attitude about stuff in the United States, policies or different things to try to protect children from the influence of some of these games. And I remember just being like, fuck a bunch of that. It's fine. It's for kids. And then I had a teacher that wrote in that was like, I have to pry these kids off these phone games. Like, it's not the same as when you were a kid and it was a Nintendo and it was at home. It's like you're literally carrying it around in your pocket all the time, and it's specifically designed to keep your attention in an addictive way to make sure that you never fucking stop playing it, which is a different problem than the one that comes to my mind when I say this, because I think like, oh, if I was 10 years old and I could only play Nintendo once a day, I would be mad as hell. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about, but I'm with you. I'm generally, get better games. Maybe it's the answer instead of just chopping it off at the knees.
I think this will be very effective at what they want to do, which is curb youth gaming. I just think, we just have a completely different worldview on the idea of what youth gaming looks like, right? I mean, even esports, you mentioned esports a little bit. Like, one thing I saw was like, the way you cultivate esports players is by having them play when they're younger. And not just playing casually, but for people who are seemingly very competitive, training and practicing, and that's more than 3 hours a week. Should it be 8 hours a day? Probably not, but it seems strange all around.
Yep. And actually, speaking of disagreeing, apparently the youths also disagree. As I'm sure they would. I just had this other story here where it's like, children don't like this, and it's like, yes, of course they don't. So yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Children don't like it either. So Speaking of things that I'm sure some people won't like, Overwatch is changing McCree's name. McCree being named after one of the developers. It was kind of embroiled in the whole. Actually, earlier I said that I didn't have any of that Activision Blizzard. Here's some of that. I lied. I'm a big liar. I had some of that Activision Blizzard. So yeah, McCree was named after one of the developers. It was kind of caught up in one of the scandals, specifically the one about the Cosby suite, which was really gross. So they're changing the character's name to something else. And actually, they're putting off an update because they were getting ready to do some kind of big story thing that involved McCree, and so they have to redo all that stuff. Some people are outraged about this. I care less whether the fictional name of the fictional guy is switched to a different fictional name. Maybe don't name the people after the people, and then you wouldn't have this problem. So,
yeah, I mean that's the rub of it, right? Like, you build a culture on comfort and trust and a very personable relationship with these developers, and then something like this happens. That's a liability regardless. Like, we've been seeing little things like this where the developers have done things like make changes in Warcraft to try to respond to those bits of lore that are inspired by these real people who now have had the meaning of their inclusion change.
Yeah.
And it's not real change because the people in these studios aren't the ones who will get to decide to make real change. They can push out a patch faster than they can investigate this entire workplace culture. So
yeah,
you kind of have to at least give them some faith that that this is probably the most that they can do right now.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. This is, I don't know. From there, we got a lot of kind of development stories here. There was an announcement that Horizon Forbidden West has a whole shitload of different wackadoodle versions. There's 9 versions of this thing.
Stupid.
The big one seems to be that just buying the game on the PS4 will not get you an automatic update to the PS5. There is okay, so it's $60 for the PS4 version, $70 for the PS5 version. And I think it's $80 for the cross-gen version that has both of them. There's also, it goes up to a $260 fucking steelbook mammoth statue. Well, you know the drill. But I think that the big thing about this one is that that Sony seemed to indicate previously that there wouldn't be an additional cost to upgrade from the PS4 version to the PS5 version. From, let's say, this is in 2020.
Well, what they said is that there would be upgrade paths, whether they were free or paid or not.
Okay.
I mean, as we've seen, has been kind of a mixed bag. But what this article supposes is that right now with these Horizon SKUs, there's no mention of a path if you buy the $60 version and you want the $70, the PS4 version, and you end up wanting the PS5 version,
right? Which
is fucking horseshit. I say this every time I'm on this podcast, Jeff. Figure this shit out. What the fuck? There are so many people who have their hand in this thing who don't seem to understand the power of having a very simple message, right? I'm not saying they need to put this thing on PlayStation Now day one and make a Game Pass competitor, but this is too many. Is this so? I just make it work, make it make sense. At least say that you can pay a $10 or whatever fee to upgrade between these things, because it's confusing and it makes it seem like they can't fucking put their heads down and come to a conclusion that is easy for everybody. This is a fucking Sony product on a Sony console. This is they have what is Jeff?
I know.
What the fuck?
Hey man, I when we were talking before about you using your PlayStation 5, I a lot of times tend to use my Xbox because I was very dismissive of the whole smart delivery thing, but that was assuming that
Apparently?
it's oh, well, the smart delivery, oh, look at me, we can do a thing. I was I'm sure Sony's going to work it out, but we're almost a year into this, and like it's still kind of complicated and confusing for what appears to be. I don't know why. Like, it seems like the sort of thing that when you're building the infrastructure for the system, you would be like, what's going to happen when you buy this? And that somebody was just like, don't worry about it. Let everybody do an individual thing. Eventually, they'll all just be buying PS5 games, so we don't even need to worry about it. And it's kind of one of those like, yeesh. So
I'm sure it's been brought up on this show and many other places, but the chip shortage, the difficulty of actually getting mass technology produced right now, I'm sure is no small factor in this. I'm sure they know that they're still not able to push out enough PS5s to as many users as they want to make that transition easy or assumed, especially with what I would say is Microsoft really winning a land battle in terms of winning people over with Game Pass, winning people over with cross-gen, with games that are still playable on Xbox Ones and these Xbox Series boxes. Like, it turns out when you can't put the new consoles out, it's very valuable to have these games on previous gens. And now this is coming across as greedy in what is probably a real financial response to not being able to make enough consoles.
Yep. It's interesting, though, too, because one of the biggest advantages on the PlayStation 4 was not just the specific Sony exclusives, but also so many of the, like, Japanese games. And there were a lot of games that were on the PS4 that I just, you couldn't download on the Xbox, which is why it was kind of my primary go-to. But then with Game Pass, it's like Game Pass doesn't make a game exclusive, but it does mean that I'll probably download it on the Xbox as opposed to the PlayStation. So in effect, it kind of ends up having the same result for me as an exclusive, and so I just end up playing my Xbox more. Like we just during our break here, we took a little bit of a longer break, and I have Hades on the Xbox because it's on Game Pass. And so I've already put 250 hours into Hades, but I'm just like, let's put some more hours into Hades, y'all. So yeah. Psychonauts 2 came out last week or a couple weeks back, and it's great. And the difference in the load time and the graphics is so negligible between the two that when it comes down to I don't have to pay for Psychonauts on the Xbox, then I'm going to play it on the Xbox. And in a lot of ways, that almost makes it an exclusive. Not exactly you could buy Psychonauts on the PS5, no, you can't.
No, I don't.
Because
you can. No.
Double Fine got bought by Microsoft and that whole thing. But it's interesting. It's interesting to think about, and I wish. But in another way, I would almost say
it is on PlayStation.
It is on. Okay, it is on PlayStation.
It is a PS4 game.
Oh, okay. In another way, though, it's interesting to think about how, in some ways, this is almost a reversion to the mean of in the PlayStation 3 era, it took Sony a long time to get their shit together. Everything ran worse. Everything didn't work as well on the PS3. And it took 2 years to get their shit together. And then during the Xbox One debacle with the Kinect and all the TV stuff, it took Microsoft a couple years to get their shit together, and now we're back. Why can't they just get their shit together and leave it together instead of totally losing it?
I think my guess would be, especially specifically with Horizon Forbidden West, is correct me if I'm wrong, but we originally believed, or it may have originally been announced, that this game would have just been a PlayStation 5 game. Wasn't that right? And then they ended up announcing it as cross-gen. There were a couple of PlayStation 5 games that happened to.
I think it was announced at the PS5 showcase, and so people assumed that it was going to be PlayStation only, and then it was eventually clarified that there would be a PS4 version of it in addition.
Gotcha.
That's what I remember.
I don't. It's just one of those things where you from the outside, it's clear this is not just a financial battle. There is a PR and an image element to this, and this I think this is complicated. Maybe this isn't. Maybe this is just overreacting to players having a lot of options in front of them. But specifically when it comes to generation upgrades, you need to make the option available. You need to make you just
Make it easier. Make it easier.
make it make sense. Make it make sense. Like, come on, just fucking give it to people.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I know it's not no work, but you have to look at what you're competing against.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's the reason. Well, convenience is a big reason why people go with consoles instead of PCs in the first place. Is I just want to hit the button and make it work. And right now, Microsoft is winning the hit the button, make it work battle. Like, that's just where it is. So we'll see.
Right.
I bet eventually Sony will get their shit together. It's just, it's weird to watch this happen again, where it's like, did you take no lessons from the last time that this was a problem? So,
right.
Let's see. We got a report that Suda51 would like to make a Deadpool game. In an interview, Suda51 talked about how he would like to make either a Deadpool or Shatterstar game, which I would love to see Suda51's Shatterstar game more than anything, because Shatterstar doesn't make any fucking sense to begin with, and then like taking it from there, give it to this crazy man. It's possible this might happen. I mean, hell, Firaxis is making a Midnight Suns game. Like, maybe Marvel's just going to be like, go forth and do things with our IP.
I wonder, like, did you ever play the Deadpool game for the PS3 era?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I thought that game was very good. Or I thought it was pretty good. The last level was bad, but I thought it was funny. Like, I thought it had a good script and was a good enough game. Man, I don't know how it sold, but I thought that the quality of that game was such that you could look at it and justify another game like that, which is a character action game.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see. We also got a slip from Nordman Reedus in an interview saying that Death Stranding 2 might be coming. This was during a Walking Dead roundtable. Norman Reedus said, "I think we're doing a second Death Stranding in negotiations right now. So yay." This article seems to this article that I'm reading on VG247 hedges its bets a little bit by being like, maybe this is the director's cut, maybe this is DLC, but like, he did say a second game. I don't know that Death Stranding really needed a sequel, considering how it's so self-contained, but
right.
What do I know?
I would disagree. I would go with their hypothesis that he's talking about the director's cut, if only because they definitely made it seem like there is a lot of extra story stuff, and maybe he went in and did a recording session. This is not to say that Norman Reedus is out of touch with this project, or that he should have, any central knowledge of it, but I could see it completely being about director's cut because they're adding new story stuff. They have to have recorded new stuff.
Sure. Are you going to play Death Stranding 2 when it comes out at the end of September, Bryce?
I will not play the director's cut, but if they make a sequel, I will play it. Okay. I really think that is a cool game.
All right. Oh, I couldn't remember whether you were pro or anti Death Stranding. I kind of.
Oh no. Oh yeah.
I kind of didn't want to play it last year. Like, it was a little too real last year with the nobody wants to go outside and walking around outside. Everything is weird and full of death. I'm like, no, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
that was a game where if you hopped on it early, kind of before that kind of washed over everybody, you could kind of make your way through. But yeah, now it's tough. It's tough to take that setting in.
Yep. Let's see. We got another story last week where a modder was going to put Sean Murray's head onto a different random thing in No Man's Sky until the newer expansion was released. Started with him just putting a picture on this car, very frightening. Putting his picture into a giant portal, also very frightening. It's really kind of horrific once we get to the point of wrapping his face texture around the bulbous aliens and the little writing guys in the map. It was pretty funny. But that all led to the fact that last week, No Man's Sky Frontiers released. So I think this is like
nice.
the 15th expansion.
I think I saw 17th.
Oh boy,
it's something double digits. Like,
yeah,
it is. I would never have believed if you told me like this was the trajectory that they would continue to evolve this game. I wouldn't have believed you. Nobody would have believed you.
Yeah. This new update throws in a few fixes, but the biggest thing is that there are now generated planetary settlements, little cities that you can literally become like the mayor of and like resolve disputes between the people that live there. There's a bunch more save slots and a few other things. It's ridiculous how much. I mean, like at this rate, I'm just like, yeah, man, keep going, go, man, go. Like, let's see how much, like, how long until this is just that Starfield game. they just updated their way into being like the next big RPG. So,
I mean, it is. I guess what No Man's Sky is becoming more and more like Minecraft every update, right? Like now it's got towns and villagers, right? It's so cool that they're doing this. This is really neat.
You know what it is? It's an early access game that's not an early access. That's what No Man's Sky is. This is an early access game that just ended up launching. Like there's a whole combat thing where the robots will attack the settlements, and they overhauled the building stuff. It's nuts. It's fucking nuts, man. Like
I want to know how many people are still playing this. I mean, you can't justify it because it's not a subscription service, so nope. You can't justify this with monthly fees. So there's got to be a lot of people playing and freshly buying into this game, I would think.
Yeah, but even now, I don't think No Man's Sky. I mean, I think it's only like $40. I mean, like it's not a full $60 game anymore. So like on Steam, it's $30. So it's half what it was in the beginning. But now it's got all this crazy shit and VR and like nuts.
Yeah, nuts.
We got some other trailers that like seem like they were going to be more interesting than they are, like this Far Cry 6 technical PC trailer that shows like, wow, you can really
Jeff, Far Cry 6, it has resolution. It has desktop resolutions.
It has so many resolutions.
Jeff, it has a benchmark mode. You can benchmark.
Actually, I wish more games had a benchmark mode, because when I get ready to play a game, I'm never entirely sure. Like, I like to record the games, and I never know whether they're going to run like shit before I hit the go button, unless I hit the go button and then see some of the game, and then I've spoiled it for myself. So, but yeah, this is.
It was just weird that to have a trailer be like, you can customize the controls. Like,
right.
Good. You're Ubisoft. It's Far Cry. Come on.
You can change the color of the enemy sniper lasers, and like there's a photo mode.
The accessibility stuff is cool, but like, and like the ray tracing, sure, but I don't know why they threw this up. We can support any resolution and unlimited frame rates. Come on, it's a PC game.
Yeah. So that was almost as silly as this Deathloop trailer, which was like, hey, the controller vibrates. It was basically going over the adaptive triggers and the haptic feedback, and then it had a little controller that had a little icons on it when shooting a gun to show, like, when you shoot a machine gun, it goes bada 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 bada, and when you shoot a sniper rifle, it goes like bang. I still want to play it. I mean, it's a lame trailer, but I still want to play the game. So
this felt like a contractual thing that they have to do because this game is a console exclusive, but nobody at Microsoft wants Arcane to spend a lot of time on this exclusive for a competitor, so they just have to do, hey, we have to make our commercial that says that we use the controller.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yep. And this is coming out, 2 weeks?
Soon.
Week and a few days after this podcast comes out. Spiritfarer got the Beverly update, which is a cute little bird that you can control and hug and do various things with. Spiritfarer is also an adorable game full of adorableness, and yeah, so just go play Spiritfarer. Sure.
Cool.
Yep. We also got this teaser for this Project Magnum game, which is like this is a free to play, or not a free to play, but this is some kind of online like multiplayer looter shooter. Yeah. And the trailer really reminds me of like if the next Final Fantasy game was like also Gears of War. Like it's got a lot of weird kind of medieval imagery to it, in addition to dudes what got armor and guns, kind of Final Fantasy style. It looks pretty cool, but I mean, it's a looter shooter, so I don't know. It reminds me a lot of Outriders, where like it seems fine if that's what you're into, but I don't know.
And this, it's a teaser trailer, so it's a lot of like good angles and cinematics, but that's not what looter shooters are. Looter shooters are you're over the shoulder and you're clicking on heads for as much as you can. So it seems like they announced it very early, or it's intentionally very early. I mean, they even mentioned it's a working title, so we probably won't. I'm assuming we won't see a final version of that game for a while. So
I don't know. Let's see. We also got the April O'Neil reveal for Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, along with Cat Dog. Now we know that there's both April O'Neil and Cat Dog in the Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. And not just that, but the eShop accidentally put up the front box art revealing Aang from Avatar, Korra, and Ren and Stimpy, which appears to round out the entire the full roster of this weird Smash Brothers Nickelodeon thing. So, but
I haven't been following this because I haven't been following this. Does this look okay? It looks a lot like Smash, Jeff.
No, it is 100% a Smash Brothers ripoff with Nickelodeon people in it. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't just rip off Smash. Apparently, lots of people do. There's Brawlhalla, and there's some bad ones on the PC. But yeah, this is just straight up. It's like when they make those kart games that are just straight up Mario Kart, but like with Invader Zim and Ren and Stimpy. But yeah, this one, I mean, I don't know. If you got a halfway decent developer, it could be fine. There's nothing wrong with ripping off Smash and putting a bunch of licensed IP in it.
Yeah, and I don't know. I feel like there's power in the Nickelodeon cartoon lineup right now. Like, I think this could be a big deal.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's see. We got some other announcements. We got the Crysis remastered trilogy gets a release date. Currently, Crysis 1 remastered is out, but they're putting out 2 and 3. They had a kind of a big trailer for it as well. It appears that this is all going to be how do I put these stories in with a date and then not be able to find the date? October 15th for Xbox, PC, PlayStation, and Switch. If you're into Crysis, these look good. I went back and tried to play the Crysis remastered when they put out I think it was like the PS5 patch or the Xbox patch, and it was just like, oh right, this is an old game that's kind of janky and hard to play. But
did it look? But did it look very high fidelity?
It looked pretty good. Hey, you know what? I'll tell you. I'll crank this other story with a bunch of Game Pass stuff coming up. Last week, one of the things that came to Game Pass was Final Fantasy 13, and this is literally the Final Fantasy 13 Xbox 360 version is free because that's the only version that there is. Like, if you want to play Final Fantasy 13, like the best way to do it in backwards compatibility mode is on an Xbox because it'll up-res it. And like, I'll be honest, I loaded it up and that thing's like a particle pass and a little bit of smoothing away from looking almost as good as Final Fantasy VII Remake does. The only thing that was bad about it was that the menus were all made for like 720p, and so they had to blow them up, and they just got a little jaggy and blurry around the edges. But outside of that, I mean, the game looks like the art style and the fidelity of this game, this PlayStation 3 game, really transferred over well to the new consoles. I just wish, I remember a million years ago, Square Enix announced that they were going to remaster the Final Fantasy 13 1, 2, and 3, and they were going to put them out on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One generation, because they had like this chest that you could buy where they were going to be re-releasing all of the Final Fantasies from 1 to 15 that you could get in this one big package. And then I've never heard any progress about this remaster, because I love Final Fantasy 13 2. I think it's an incredibly underrated game. So, but I also like Final Fantasy 10, so maybe don't take my opinion seriously.
10 is good. What? 10 is good. 10-2 is good too. 10-2 is very underrated too.
People don't like it. They like to say, look at this clip of Titus laughing, this whole game is bad. And I'm like,
It's a good, no, that scene, nah.
There's a bunch of other stuff coming out. Craftopia came out, which is kind of a crafting game. Surgeon Simulator 2 is on the console and the PC. There's a game called Crown Trick. It's coming out. Breath Edge, which is kind of this. I played Breath Edge, I think, for a Patreon video, where it's like this kind of retro futurism Soviet, like you're in this spaceship that blew up, and so you're kind of just like have this one like little contained area in a big debris field, and you have to kind of go. It's kind of like Subnautica, except it's space. And then it's got this weird Eastern European edge to it. Nuclear Throne is coming out, and Artful Escape, which I am really looking forward to because it looks crazy. So, let's see. Bravely Default is on Steam. This is funny because this says September 2nd. So, this is kind of a surprise.
Oh yeah, so it's out now.
Mm-hmm. Bravely Default 2 was pretty cool on the Switch, but I'm sure it runs a little bit better on Steam. And if you're into JRPGs, there's a huge-ass JRPG that you can play on Steam. Bada bing, bada boom.
Nice.
Skate 4 got a brief teaser showing somebody jumping over a PC monitor with the tweet PC_confirmation.exe, confirming that for the first time, apparently Skate 4 is going to be on the PC. No other information, no release dates, or anything even remotely related to that. So just that.
We're ready for a good skate game. We're primed and ready. The masses are as hungry as they're gonna get for it.
Did we ever
be good?
Did we ever get tired of skateboarding games? I think there's some subset of people that just never wanted them to stop, right?
I think the skate games. I think the Tony Hawk games went long in the tooth. The skate games tried to give it a fresh spin, but I think by that point they were a little on the outs. And I guess, it's EA, so they got distracted with the stuff that was very, very popular and actually made a ton of money. But I think we're ready for more skate.
I'm ready for more Skate Bird. I don't know why I have to watch a anti-drunk driving PSA, but I'm a big fan of Skate Bird, where you get
is that out?
No, I think it might be like an early access, or there's soon. Like a demo, but it's pretty soon. Yeah,
2 weeks. Okay,
Skatebird.
This cute. It's like a miniature Tony Hawk. Okay.
Also, in a couple weeks, we're getting the DC Fandome. More than a couple, October 16th, but they put out a teaser for the DC Fandome and indicated via flashing screenshot that went by so fast you might have missed it, that we might actually see more from Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League and Gotham Knights, which wasn't it like 2019 that we heard about that originally? Let's see. Here's the YouTube official gameplay video on the DC channel. No, it was 2020. Okay, I guess it was last year.
Yeah.
seems like it had been longer than that, but
I have not been following. I remember that the Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League teaser coming out and it looking good. And now that new Suicide Squad movie came out, and I thought it was pretty good. I don't know if you guys talked about it here, but that gives me that gives me a little bit of hope that game is equally like well written and fun.
I hope so. It's funny, yeah, when we talked about Suicide Squad, I think that in between the time when this trailer came out and now, like, I have warmed to the Suicide Squad, and more than that to Harley Quinn, more than I had in like the entire time before that, because of the animated show. I liked her in the movie. Like, I've liked a lot of the portrayals of her, whereas before she's just kind of seemed to be the resident sex kitten of the Batman family. And that's because I didn't read the comics. And so like all I was seeing was just, oh, look, she's in hot pants now. And here she is in Arkham Asylum, locking doors and having boss fights. But between the movie and the animated show, I'm all in. And yeah, I like that. I like that movie a lot. Need to watch it again. Let's see. We got a big rumor here that Nintendo is going to expand the Switch Online free games to have Game Boy and Game Boy Color games in it. I have absolutely no idea why anybody ever gets excited for Game Boy or Game Boy Color games, because generally speaking, 90% of them were trash. Like, I had a Game Boy. I bought them when they came out. The Super Mario on the Game Boy, it sucks. The Castlevania on the Game Boy, it sucks. Like, it's like Pokemon and Tetris, right? Like, but
Mario and the Six Golden Coins, Mario World 2 and the Six Golden Coins is a very good game. That game, that you didn't need a lot of good games on the Game Boy, especially if you're a kid. You just needed the couple of good games.
Wait, Mario and the Six
Game Boy Advance. Yeah, Mario and the Six Golden Coins. Is that it? Super Mario Land 2. That's it. Six Golden Coins. That's a banger of a game.
Okay. I might have spoken too soon, because I think I might have thrown my Game Boy into an incinerator by the time this game came out. So, or given it to somebody else. I know I gave my yellow Game Boy with my Pokemon Pikachu to my friend and was like, I don't want this. You can have this. This isn't fun.
Oh, wow. And that was the Game Boy that I had. I had the yellow one, and the little power light was Pikachu's cheek.
Yeah, I don't know. I lived through so many. I started with the big fatty, and I lived through so long of like, I cannot see this screen. I cannot, unless I am sitting under the direct sunlight, I cannot see what the hell is going on here. So but I don't know. They might be coming soon. I would actually.
I wonder what games they will put on there, because I feel like they've got access to platforms with great games, and they're putting good games on there. But I don't know the breadth of the Nintendo Online game service.
Last time I checked, they were putting a lot of Jalco games, Jellico games, or whatever, like weird choices on there right now. I mean, considering the back catalog of like really classic stuff that Nintendo has, like the third-party stuff was really strange, and I don't know. I'm just not even as big a fan of playing those retro games on the Switch, but then it's because I have a Raspberry Pi and a Nintendo controller. So, but you know what? I do want this SNES Works book here that we got towards the end. Says, do you watch listen to Retronauts or watch Jeremy Parrish's YouTube videos? I've heard people talk about it before.
I'm not familiar.
Apparently there's like incredibly deep dives into various games, and I've never really looked at him before, but he put together this book that was like kind of a coffee table book about some Nintendo games, but this isn't it's like really in depth. Apparently, like the F-Zero, it's like 9 pages. It goes into the development. It goes into the, kind of putting the whole thing together. There's a Super NES Works Volume 1, and there was also a Virtual Boy one this one covers everything that came out on the Virtual Boy, because obviously that you could do all that in one book. But It's a good looking book. This was, I mean, it's $35 and it's completely sold out, but like it's a real nice, like professional, big pages, glossy pictures, like nice stuff. I would consider actually paying money for this. This is my glowing endorsement. I would consider potentially actually paying money for this one thing.
Yeah, it would be cool to have a history book, a little history coffee table book for these retro games. Yeah.
But then I feel like if I got one, then I'd have to buy them all because then I need to put them all on my shelf. And if I got volume 1, 2, and 4, then I would just die of embarrassment for when the Pope comes over and he's like, "Where's volume 3?" And I'd be like, "I'm sorry, Your Grace. I'm sorry."
I think there are worse things to get obsessed with collecting than books.
The coffee table books.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's okay to collect books.
Yeah, I need to go back. I need to watch some of these. These are only like 15, 20 minutes, which is a good length for a YouTube video. So,
Retronauts.
Yeah. We also got this other thing that was interesting called it's like a Kickstarter for this thing called Tiny Library. That's like a deck of cards, and each individual card is a different RPG with like a little rule set that was made by, like, they were made by different people, and there was no attempt to make them like consistent. Some of them are single player, some of them are multiplayer. It's like a weird just deck of playing card sized RPGs with like rules on one side and story on the other side. Like there's this farm RPG thing that like you roll a dice and then you flip the card over, and one part is like you throw the card up in the air and then like what side it comes down on determines what you do. It's a nifty little concept.
Yeah, like that farm one is fascinating because right, you can play it one person. I think they don't even bother like telling you how many people you're supposed to play, but it looks like you can just play it one person. And do you win or do you lose? No, you just get, it just says, hey, here's what happens. Discuss what happened. You just played the game. Here's something that happens. Discuss. Hey, you went through, which is, I love this. This is really clever.
Yeah, it's up on Kickstarter, and it's like $10, I think. They got $34,850 of their $3,700 goals, so they literally have 10 times the number of backers that they needed. But there's 50 cards in the pack, and apparently it's like $10 to $11 to get it. And last but not least, Bryce, I just for you, the horror of AI returns.
Yes.
This week, the AI is giving Street Fighter characters realistic human faces, and some of them are okay. Some of them are okay. This comes from this is a Kotaku article, but this comes from so
they use a technology called Style Clip, and these are posted on Twitter, Siberian644,
right, and Final Boss, who did the AI feed on them. So we got a Guile that looks, it's kind of all right. We got a Chun-Li,
She looks like a real person. Like, it's taking the, like, what is this, Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5 images and trying to make them look photorealistic, and it kind of works. That Ken one looks all right.
Yeah. Laura looks okay, but then it's like, it's fine as long as, the problem is that a lot of the Street Fighter characters have like things like there's the Ibuki one where she has like a black thing over the bottom of her face, and then when the AI just turned that into like stubble on this really strange looking character.
Or like the Mika. Look at the Mika one where they've taken the blindfold and tried to make it these blue glasses, and it doesn't know what to do with pigtails.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting. The Zangief one, I think, is my favorite because it looks like a crazy Russian man that would razzle a bear. So, but yeah, it's I don't know what the heck happened to M. Bison though at the end here. Have you made your peace with our AI overlords yet, Bryce?
It's a weird time for machine learning and AI. Like, and the no. The answer is no, because we don't even know the depths. You thought automation was dangerous, like, well, dangerous, powerful. Artificial intelligence, machine learning are going to be huge technologies that we will not be able to ignore.
I think it's going to be the way that you finally get graphics to look. You're going to hit. I feel like we're already hitting an upper limit as to like just the amount of raw power that it takes to make graphics look better than they used to. And I think that running this stuff through an AI filter is a way to maybe cheat that system a little bit, right? That instead of just like putting more voxels in your more gigaflops that like, you know, you just train an AI to be like, I don't know, make it look like it actually does in real life. And the AI is like, okay, sure.
And I think we are not far from that at all. We have what is it? DS or DL? No, what is it? The DLSS, is that what it is? Where
yes.
It will try to smart up-res your your image. Like, those are fake pixels. I've said this before. Those are fake pixels. We are not even hard coding the images anymore. We are letting it guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary. It does seem a little scary to me.
I think we got time for a question or two. So let's do a question. I got one that came in this week from Chris. Chris says, hello.
Hi, Chris.
Jeff and Bryce. Chris here. I don't have a question, more so a talking point, and I value your opinion and would like to hear your thoughts. I have a big complaint, not with you, but with movies, specifically movie trailers. I like the way that Chris is nice enough to assume that just immediately saying I have a complaint, that can be like, hey, come on. All right, so movie trailers. Last month I watched The Suicide Squad, and I really liked it, 7.5 out of 10, but not everyone feels the same. That's okay, but I feel a big part of their negative opinion comes from the damn movie trailer. I give myself a rule, and I follow pretty strictly. I never watch the movie trailers. Movie trailers do more than give the general plot of the movie away. They spoil jokes, events, surprises, etc. It also messes with your expectations and anticipations of when the same line seen in the trailers is going to happen. A specific example is basically that whole Force Awakens trailer, especially when you see Han and Chewie, he says we're home, like that took away from the viewing experience. In Suicide Squad, they have the joke about Harley Quinn that they saw before. I'm just paraphrasing, it's a very long email. In the upcoming Batman movie, we already know the upcoming Batman movie, you already know if you're going to watch the movie, you don't need a damn trailer to help you make your mind up. Same with the Dune movie, same with literally every established property that you know who is acting in it. Even in the movie theaters, I cover my ears and close my eyes and talk to myself like a maniac so I don't see or hear anything. Even worse is those YouTube trailer breakdowns that show all the Easter eggs, try to predict plot points like, what the fuck, that's giving way too much away. Jeff, I promise you, if you go into a movie watching no trailers, it will make the movie experience 10 times better. Trailer helps for mysterious movies or indie movies or something no one's ever heard of, but not necessarily. And then he has a list of they have the list of movies that they've gone into that have been better, and Suicide Squad and Star Wars and Life and The Revenant, and talks about watching Whiplash. Anyway, sorry for the long.
Get Out had a notoriously bad trailer. Like, it is a blessing that nobody knew that movie was like, that wasn't a big hit until after it was out, because that trailer ruins the entire movie. It spoils the whole thing about that movie.
Yeah. So sorry for the long rant. Keep up the great work from Chris. I think I read this, and this came in yesterday, and I was like, I get it. Like, my friend Amanda never watched it. Well, do you watch the trailers beforehand, Bryce? Do you go out of your way to avoid them or anything?
I will tend to. So I end up having to look at a certain amount of trailers for the Cord Killers podcast that I do, which is about entertainment and streaming stuff. So I end up seeing some, but I try not to bother watching the major movies, the expensive movies. Like, I'm not seeing the trailer for Shang-Chi, so I have no expectations for it. I hear it will probably be good, but I don't really know. Because a lot of times trailers will get me deflated for a movie, like especially the Marvel stuff. Like there really is not anything in a Marvel movie that making into a trailer is better than just watching the movie. So I will really not try to see that. TV shows and stuff, I think those are fine. You have such longer stories you can tell, but I'm not as harsh with it. Some people are real harsh about no trailers. I tend to avoid them because I have a better time not seeing trailers.
In reading this, it's interesting because there's an assumption in here that doesn't really apply to me, and that is, well, we all know that you're going to go watch X movie, and like for me, there's so much on my docket of things to consume when it comes to TVs and video games and TV show or the movies and animes and all the books, music, the whole 9 yards, that I need the trailer, or I look at the trailer to get me excited for something where I go, okay, I will put that is interesting enough that I will put it on the list. Like I wouldn't just assume, like, to be honest, the previous Suicide Squad movie was dick. Right? Like if you had said, like if I didn't know anything about the new Suicide Squad movie, I'd say the previous Suicide Squad movie was a waste of my fucking life. Like, and it was really the first teaser trailer where they had all the characters and who they were. And then that second teaser trailer that had the joke with the dicks on the beach, like that, it was stuff like that got me really psyched up and ready to go. And I can understand something like Get Out, where there's a mysterious thing. Like the trailer for The Matrix was great because it just like didn't tell you shit. It was like, what is the Matrix? I don't know. You have to go to the theater to find out. And I did. And I was like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. Or Inception. The trailer for Inception really didn't explain it. I think that for me, like knowing that one joke from the Suicide Squad trailer didn't bother me when I was watching the movie. Like it entertained me in the trailer, and if it was the only entertaining joke in the movie, that would have been one thing. But like it was like, oh, here's that point where that joke is, and I've already seen it, but it's a good joke. So I use the trailer to evaluate my level of interest. Like Shang-Chi is a good example where I watch the trailers for Shang-Chi and I'm like, I can wait for that to come to Disney Plus. I'd rather watch it in my house than like must go to theater. I'm super excited. Gotta see everything. Gotta get out there. Gotta see it. So that's kind of where I'm at for it. I actually think that movie trailers aren't quite as bad as game trailers, because movie trailers a lot of times tend to be like a teaser trailer and then like a main trailer, and then sometimes there's like a second trailer. Whereas like, goddamn, with games they put out fucking 45. I mean, we're just talking about the Deathloop PS5 controller trailer, and it's like, yeah, I get it, guys. Like, yeah,
it's because part of it is because game marketing has become more sophisticated, more of a sophisticated art, I think, and those marketing times are much longer, right? Movies, you announce the movie a few years out, and then you really promote it, a few months before it comes out. Where with games, you want to announce them as soon as possible and get. I mean, we were talking about the Dead Space remake, and they're just showing, mid
super
or
alpha
production footage.
Yeah,
and that will probably shape some of the game, right? The reaction will probably shape some little parts of that game, at least. So yeah, there's just not a space for what is the 30-second TV commercial for this game, because there are whole communications teams who are supposed to get you involved and create a community and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Months, years ahead of time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, plus the other thing for me is that I don't know how to say this without sounding like a big asshole, but like movies don't matter as much to me, and I don't mean that in that I think that they're like trash. It's just that when I'm not like so invested in seeing a movie that it's like if I get a little piece of it spoiled for me, that's not a big deal. Like, I care more about games than I do about movies because of the interactive medium. I think that like having a big twist or something different or something that you didn't know because the marketing materials hid it from you has a bigger impact for me than like, the movie has a twist. And probably some of that is because after The Sixth Sense, right, like everything had to have some kind of subvert your expectations, like twisty thing. But I don't know. I mean, like I give movies a lot of, I'm not as into movies as I am into other things. Like, I like them and I watch them, but you know, we get the advertisements for the Alamo Drafthouse about how like, this is my church and cinema, and it's a sacred medium for generations, and it's just like, Jesus, guys, like, lay off a little bit.
There was an interesting Variety interview I think I read this past week that I think there was hubbub over something Patty Jenkins said or whatever, but it was like a conversation with like her and some of the people who run theaters and some of the people who work at the studios, and it's interesting the way that we're having the conversations about films right now, right, with streaming services commissioning or distributing a lot of films either on their own or in theaters, and theaters clearly having going to continue to have a rough go with COVID and shutdowns and already pre-pandemic ticket sales dropping, and it was interesting because it was a certain amount of like, I am going to make films for the theater because I think that there's an institution and it's got its own quality, but then in the same conversation say, well, the theater owners aren't like making good investments, and like there is a cheapening almost of the format, right? Like you wouldn't compare the price of movie tickets to like going and seeing a professional sports game or going and seeing like a theater like movies are kind of a price efficient entertainment option. So like, what is the prestige of cinema? It's strange the state of film right now.
All I could think about is the stuff from Denis Villeneuve or whatever from Dune. Is like, I hate this gatekeepy, like, you gotta watch it in the theater bullshit, because that always assumes that you have like the time and the like oh man, during the pandemic, that whole Tenet nonsense, which you gotta watch it in the theater, man, you gotta watch it on the big screen. It's like, man, don't you tell me, if I want to take this $400 steak and put it in the blender with Twizzlers and drink it down, I will do what I want. The movie guy, like, I mean, it's a movie, like, and the thing is that if I like your movie, I'm going to watch it 100 times at home on my TV, and that's how I'm going to remember it. I'm going to remember the story. I'm going to remember the characters. I'm not going to remember the one time that I went to the theater to see the big boomy boom 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 and the fucking 5.1 surround. I hate this. I don't like going to the theater because I have had a lot of incredibly bad movie theater experiences. Like even there was a time.
There are a lot of bad screens out there. There are a lot of bad screens right now.
I went to Alamo Drafthouse one time with my friend to watch Deadpool, and like this drunk lady came in and sat next to me and was just talking to me like at full volume. Like, who is that guy? It was literally like a sketch in a like, her and her boyfriend they walked into The Witch, and they were in The Witch for 15 minutes before they realized it wasn't Deadpool, and then they fucking like stumbled their way wine drunk in and sat next to me, and it took Alamo like 30 minutes to get them out of the theater, because it's like, put up a card, we'll come out. They gave them a warning, they kept talking, they blah 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 blah, they kicked out one guy, and it's like, right, I had already seen Deadpool by that point, but that would have essentially ruined the entire experience of seeing that movie. And it's not like Alamo was going to start it over again or give me back my money or something like that. Like, there's so many bad movie theater experiences, and I feel like that's the thing that doesn't get taken into account when Christopher Nolan is like, you got to watch it in the theater. And it's like, right, I want to do it at home.
I agree with your perspective, which is that at the end of the day, I'm the one deciding what movies I watch, and I will have a bias towards watching movies that I can watch at home over the theater. That's just my own preference. At the same time, if the thing that I get frustrated with the conversation over this a movie should be on a big theater screen is like we know in this modern age that those movies will come to VOD or to streaming, or that will happen. And you know, if your Christopher Nolan says, if you really want to see my movie first, you can only watch it in theaters or whatever. Like, I think that's fine. I think the thing I don't like is when it gets, when it becomes a judgment call or maybe a judgment on myself as the consumer. Like, you know, I bought and watched Tenet at home because I was interested to see that movie and I didn't want to go out to the theaters in the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't begrudge it. I probably would have liked that movie better in a theater, to be honest with you. But if he's the one with the control to make that decision, and his decision is I'm going to put it in theaters only at first, I can respect that, but I don't want to think my preference, which is to watch it at home with the convenience of that, to be poo-pooed. Like,
yeah.
I think that there's a way to say cinema is important. This product has been designed for this experience, than to say it's shitty if you watch it on your home TV, because I know it's shitty, but I get to pause it and turn the subtitles on and go to the bathroom and pay for my own popcorn.
Also, my home TV is pretty fucking good. Like,
you have a good TV. You got a good TV.
I have a good TV. I paid for a good TV. Like, hey. Anyway, you don't have to pay for a TV to listen to the Rage Select podcast. That's what it is. I'm going to put a little impassioned plea here to go to patreon.com/Rage Select. We had a little bit of a dip last month, and, you know, that's how we pay for the time and the effort and the games and all that stuff. So come to the Discord server, get the bonus videos. Man and I are going to try to play all the way through Psychonauts 2. We actually just finished a playthrough of Resident Evil Village, so if you want to see that, you can go over there. And Psychonauts 2 so far has been absolutely delightful. A good 20% of everything we say in that is, oh my gosh, isn't this delightful? In other delightful news, Bryce, where can the people find you online?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at Brycas, Brycas. And if you're not already into the Marbles stuff, season 2, I think, is going to start in October for our competitive Marbles league. So check out all the info on that at marbles.win is the website. Thank you.
There you go. And that's it. That's another podcast. It's Friday night. The podcast is done. I am going to go drink 1,000 beers. 1,000 beers.